Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell and joined by attorney Stephen Jessup. And Stephen, today we're going to talk about arthritis as a disabling condition, and will the disability insurance carriers pay for a diagnosis of arthritis? And arthritis is an interesting condition because it really encompasses more than 100 different types of diseases. So this video is general, whereas we've seen almost every type of specific arthritic condition that's been diagnosed. But what's especially challenging about having an arthritic condition is the fact that basically anyone who's almost over the age of 40 experiences some form of arthritis or arthritic symptoms, which means basically that you have pain and stiffness in different parts of your body, whether it's in your hands, your knees, your shoulders, your back, your neck, any of the joints in your body. And when it comes to filing a disability claim, the disability carriers see this all the time, and they're basically like, well, when did it happen? Because obviously it's a chronic condition. What's different about your situation, and why now all of a sudden is it stopping you from work? And this is the classic scenario that we see in every case. So in this video, I kind of want to go through what a person should do in order to put themselves in the best position to get their benefits approved, whether they're first applying or they're already in a situation where their benefits have been denied. So what's the first thing you think about when you need to prove a claim for someone who's suffering with an arthritic diagnosis?
Well, generally, like you said, arthritis is usually chronic. People have been treating, going to their doctors for it, generally speaking. So it's always what the medical, my first question is, how often are you getting into the doctors? What is the treatment? Changes in medication, various things the doctors have recommended. So it's always going to start with the medical records, what those are documenting, what those are stating, because we need to make sure that based on what those medicals are showing, how it's going to draw this connection as to why you can't perform your occupational duties. And then, like you said, there's so many different types, knowing the type that you have. Insurance companies are going to take certain types of arthritis, more seriously than others. My personal opinion and experience, seropositive rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis is treated differently than osteoarthritis is going to be. So knowing the context of what the problem is always the first part to understanding what we're going to have to prove to an insurance company as to why your chronic condition that you've been suffering from now is preventing you from doing your job.
And Stephen, in terms of treating with the appropriate doctor that's best to support the claim, what should a claimant know about that situation?
I think, first, a lot of the times you see people have these conversations with their primary care, and the primary care will give them a referral, whether it be a rheumatologist, sometimes pain management, but, taking the advice of your doctors to get into those specialists. And some people who have had the problem and have not necessarily treated with specialists that file a disability claim with only their primary care doctor, yes, that primary care doctor can render an opinion as to, their opinion of your ability to work, but an insurance company is going to want to see, are you treating with a specialist? And it can be hard to get in with a specialist, time frame, how long it takes to get in. So it's something you have to kind of prepare in advance. Having a rheumatologist will definitely go further for you than if you're just treating with a primary care, generally speaking. Now, there are caveats and there are exceptions to that rule, but an insurance company is always going to want to see, if this is so bad, are you treating with a specialist? Are you changing medications, trying to find something that'll work? And a lot of times, I'm sure you've seen it too, where people are just basically taking over-the-counter medication to try to help with the pain. An insurance company will look at that and not taking any of the stronger medications as a sign that this can't be that bad and shouldn't be affecting your ability to do your job.
And Stephen, in a lot of our claims with people with arthritis, whether it's osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, there's a lot of medications out there that obviously, number one, you have to be getting prescribed those medications and trying to exhaust all of the pharmacological remedies that are out there. But with a lot of these conditions, there's ups and downs. We say your condition wax and wanes, and as well that you can have good days and bad days, and some days you can go days at a time without even having a flare. And what happens very often is that a disability carrier goes out and does video surveillance of a claimant under these situations and sees the person go to the grocery store and get in and out of their car and maybe go to the laundry, to the dry cleaner or something like that, and basically says, you look okay. Mm-hmm. And that's the classic denial that we see. Does the person who has this arthritic condition and is of the position that they can't work the 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, but yet can still function in life, are they not going to be able to get approved benefits, or is that the typical pattern that they can still function normal in life, they just can't commit to the employer for 40 hours a week?
My argument is always these disability policies don't mean you're disabled from performing activities of daily living. It's can you work? Can you do your job? Can you do, any other occupation, depending on the definition of disability? It's always this idea of, being able to work with some level of reasonable continuity. And yes, these conditions, you have flares, and that's something insurance companies know and they pounce on. If you've been months without a flare, it makes it easier for them to say, well, okay, you should be able to go back to work. At this point, we caught you, we saw you being able to do X, Y, and Z, because to them, at the end of the day, with arthritis, the ultimate symptom is pain, which is subjective in nature. So your insurance company is going to try to find all kinds of extraneous information like that video surveillance, maybe field interviews where they put eyes on you, they talk to you, they see how you react, things like that, as a basis to show, well, look how they can operate day to day. So if they can do this day to day, why can't they do a sedentary job? Why can't they do a light duty job? So it can be very difficult, and the insurance companies will challenge it. So you can expect when filing a claim, even if you're initially approved, you will be fought. There will be a lot of scrutiny that's going to come into the condition just by the nature of it. The good days and bad days are usually, like you said, hallmarked by severe flares and periods of relative stability there. And speaking, the medication can reduce the symptoms that you have, and when that shows up in the records that the medication is working, you're improving, you're feeling better, these things, insurance companies will say, okay, well, you're showing all this improvement for X number of months, you should be able to work now, that's what our doctors think, and then they deny the claim. So these are difficult cases to continue to be able to establish month after month after month, just by the nature of them.
And, Stephen, we talked about pain, and we always say pain is subjective, which it is, which means there's no machine that you can go dial into that's going to say what your pain level is today, like as if you go and get blood work and it's going to tell you what your white blood cell count is. It doesn't work like that with pain.
Exactly.
And with arthritis, you have your musculoskeletal type arthritic conditions like osteoarthritis, and then you have your autoimmune type disorders, for the arthritic, like the rheumatoid arthritis and the psoriatic arthritis type things. And often in our claims, we don't have a dispute because there's objective evidence that you have those conditions. So there's no dispute from the carrier to say, no, you don't have that condition. We don't believe your blood work or your MRIs or your x-rays. It doesn't work like that. And so the carriers basically say, we just don't think your subjective complaints are reaching the level of disability. So how do you work with the claimant to really prove that their pain is limiting them from doing their job?
First, like we always say, it starts with the medical, that it's being documented well in the medical. But the insurance company's doctors are going to have their own opinion. There's nothing that says the insurance company has to give more weight to your doctor's opinions than their own. So then it's really drawing that nexus, this idea of diagnosis equaling disability. And depending on the type of work that was done, do you look at additional objective testing geared towards us, such as functional capacity evaluations? As you know, most insurance companies at some point are going to strip down occupational duties to the lowest common denominator, which is the physical demand set forth by the Department of Labor. So that functional capacity testing, that is going to really show, can you work at that designated physical demand level? So you're always trying to work this and draw this nexus between the two. And that may show that you don't have sedentary ability or you don't have it on a full-time basis. So that is a tool that can really be used outside of what's in the traditional medical record sense and the objective test. You said it perfectly. They're not disputing the diagnosis. They're disputing that's resulting in disability. So that's where these other tests and then, targeted questionnaires and claim forms to doctors really kind of pull out and elaborate restrictions and limitations as to what you can do from an occupational standpoint in light of those conditions.
And I think the other biggest component that we work with the claimants to really explain, you see, look, at the disability company, there's a human being there who's reviewing the claim, believe it or not, and they've had some pain for some reason at some point in their life. When a person has pain, even if it's as minor as a headache that everyone gets one time a year or something like that, as a description of a pain factor, it's very difficult to concentrate, focus, and do the duties of your job. You basically, when you think about a person who is in pain, you want to get yourself away from that pain, and you're not going to be focused on your work. You're not going to be able to think as clearly as you were. You're not going to remember all the things that you have to do. The thing you're going to be thinking about is your pain, and not all the other things you have to do for your job, not the commitments you have for meetings and things that are scheduled. And your work product really starts to severely deteriorate because you're not even really interested in the work because you're so concerned about your pain and how are you going to make that go away. And so since there's no measure of is the person really in pain, and you compare that with, well, they say, well, you can stand, you can walk, you can sit. Yeah, a lot of people can stand, walk, and sit in pain and probably do that for 40 hours a week. But can they deliver the quality of work that is required to be delivered? And when you think about it, see, if someone came to interview with you for a job and they go, yes, I can work with you, but I'm on these painkillers and I'm on this other medication and I have to take breaks every 8 to 10 minutes because I'm so uncomfortable in different parts of my body, and by 12 o'clock I'm totally fatigued and exhausted and I have to take a nap and I'm not as sharp as I was at 8 o'clock in the morning by the time 11 o'clock rolls around. You're like, I'm sorry you feel that way, but there's no way I'm going to have you work in this company because I'm getting a quarter of you. So goes back to the fact that you said, look, you don't have to be bedridden to be disabled, but you got to be a fully functioning 40-hour-a-week committed employee.
Reliable employee.
That any reasonable person would want to hire. And that's the personal dynamic to this that I think when we work with a claimant that we articulate, and we work with the clients to really dial into what were the duties of the job and why couldn't you do all of those things. Whether we agree with how they define the occupation or not, we still have to convey your story as the claimant to make the carrier understand why you can't do that job, or really any job if you have an any occupation definition of disability. So, in summary, if you have a claim for arthritis, we're happy to help you. And the way we can do that is we'll provide you with an initial free consultation and review your claim. Whether you're applying, whether you've been denied, contact Stephen, myself, or any of our lawyers. No matter where you live in the country, we're available to assist you. We highly recommend that you spend some time on our website. Whether you search your own disability company or you search by your medical condition, you'll find lots of cases and lawsuit summaries from around the country related to your company and your medical condition. And what that's going to do is it's going to educate you about this process and what you should expect as we move forward. Also, if you're on claim already, these cases, lawsuits, reviews by other claimants, and tips that we provide are going to help you put you in the best position for you to get your benefits paid and continue having your benefits paid. So we look forward to helping you in the future, and we'll be here should you need us. Thank you.